All right, in this video, we're going to look at how to compare fractions. When you're given two or more fractions and you ask to arrange them in a certain order, maybe from least to highest or from highest to least, right? So let's start with an example. 4/7 and 2/3. Right? The most consistent way to do this, depending on the size of the fraction, is to establish a common denominator, right? And then whilst you're doing that, you know that the numerators will change. At the end of the day, it's the numerators you're going to compare to tell you which fraction is smaller or larger, right? So when I look at the denominators, I can see that, one is not a multiple of the other, right? The only way I can find the denominator is to look for what is called the least common multiple, or simply just multiply the two, right? If you multiply the two, you get 21. 21 will be the common denominator. So what I do is, if I multiply this by 3, I get 21. But since I've changed this denominator, I have to do the same thing I did to the numerator up there, right? So in the end, I have, 12/21 here. So I got 12/21 for the first one. And then we go to the second one, right? Since I'm working on making sure the denominators are the same, the way I got this denominator was to multiply by 3. So when I go here, I multiply by 7 to get my denominator to be the same as the first fraction. Since I changed this denominator by multiplying, I have to repeat that operation in the numerator, right? So in the second fraction, we have what? 14/21, right? So as soon as you see this, you can tell that the first fraction is smaller than the second. In other words, the original fraction that we're given, 4/7, is less than 2/3, right? That's really simple. So you will, if it's an arrangement, they will ask you to arrange, or sometimes you'll be given more than 2 or 3 fractions to compare, right? So all you have to do is establish the common denominator, and then you take it from there. All right, let's do another example. I have here 11/15 and 3/5. Right? So here I can see that there's a relationship between 15 and 5, so that will help me establish the common denominator quickly, right? So my common denominator, I choose the bigger number, right? Which is basically a multiple of the smaller number. So if I multiply this by 3, it takes me to 15, which is the common denominator. But since I changed this number now, I have to do the same thing I did in the numerator inside the denominator, or vice versa, right? So in the end, I have 11/15, and then compared with 9/15, right? Because this second fraction becomes 9/15. So we can have 11/15 and then 9/15. So right away, we see that the first fraction is bigger than the second. Because once the denominators are the same, just compare the numerators and you are done, right? Let's do one last example. Okay, so let's say I have 2 over 3, and then I have 3 over 4, and I also have 4 over 5, right? We're comparing these. Let's say, the question says arrange them from the largest to the smallest, right? So the same thing you do, establish a common denominator. So we look at 3, 4, and 5, right? And then, we check out their multiples in our heads to see when will they meet if we write them side by side and then look for their multiples. For me, the easiest way is to, if the denominators are small, I just multiply them, right? So here I would do 3 times 4 times 5 to get 60, right? So 60 is going to be my common denominator. And then I go back and look at how I get to 60 from 3. I have to multiply this by 20, multiply this by 20 for the first fraction, right? And then the second fraction, how I get to 60 from 4 is multiplying 4 by 15, and then multiplying 3 by 15. Remember, whatever you do in the denominator, repeat it in the numerator, right? So that's for the second fraction. And then for the third fraction, how do I get to 60 from 5? By multiplying by 12 and multiplying by 12. So I can easily write that the common denominator is 60. You can write this, right? Even in addition and, subtraction. And then I look at the numerators. 2 by 20 is 40. 3 by 15 is 45. And then 4 by 12 is what? 48. So looking at this, these are nicely arranged in increasing order, right? But they could be mixed up in any, shape or form. All you have to do is establish the common denominator, look at what came out of the numerators, and then go back and say, okay, if I'm to arrange this in decreasing order, I'll put 4 over 5 first, which is larger than 3 over 4, which is larger than 2 over 3. All right? So this is how you deal with, comparing fractions. Establish a common denominator. Don't forget to alter the numerator as you change the denominator, right? If it's easy, just multiply the denominators to get your common denominator and then work your way out from there. All right, thanks for listening in.